What's your understanding of why they were refusing to tow?
Well, there are several reasons. The first was their own safety. I think they felt that trying to tow a vehicle without the site being secured in amongst protesters, you could imagine, it could be quite conflictual when you're trying to take someone's truck and people are still around the truck. So they were concerned about that.
I think we've heard some incredibly important evidence. What the evidence is today is about how the truckers were working with the city officials to de-escalate the situation.
I don't think they're building the case here. There were other tools available that I think could have de-escalated a situation much better. A lot of things the Prime Minister could have done in the first place, but the fact we were here and the fact that he even thought that needed to be evoked was frustrating in itself.
Hello everyone, William Diaz here with Rebel News, and today let me walk you through what you need to know about Day 3 of the Emergencies Act inquiry here in Ottawa. The inquiry is taking place since during the peaceful freedom convoy that occurred back in February. Justin Trudeau used a never-seen-before Emergencies Act. This served to override all the civil liberties of the protesters that were there. The inquiry's role is to determine whether or not the use of the Act was necessary and justified. First of all, the two people testifying were Steve Kanalakos from the City of Ottawa and Chief of Staff Serge Arpin.
What's your understanding of why they were refusing to tow?
Well, there are several reasons. The first was their own safety. I think they felt that trying to tow a vehicle without the site being secured in amongst protesters, you could imagine, it could be quite conflictual when you're trying to take someone's truck and people are still around the truck. So they were concerned about that. They were concerned about the damage potentially to their own vehicle should things get out of hand, and it's a cost to their business. Some were concerned that they do business with truckers and trucking companies, and that this would damage them reputationally and they would lose business. Some were sympathizers or supported the protests and didn't feel that they were going to offer their services to do it. Those were generally the reasons.
Finally, my last question relates to a proposition that Council for the Government of Canada put to you in terms of enforcing the City of Ottawa's injunction. And the suggestion was that enforcement of the injunction came in the days after the invocation of the Emergencies Act. And my question to you is, was the city's injunction ever used as a measure? Are you aware?
No, it wasn't used as a measure.
Okay, thank you. Those are all my questions.
I wanted to convey to the Prime Minister's office that we needed their help. The numbers were inconsistent. We wanted them to know that we were being told about the numbers was inconsistent. And I conveyed that, and I believe that there was a change in tone, roughly the next day. I think maybe someone realized this will have to be a team effort. We need them. It's clear that we need them to help end the insurgency and the demonstration. And I guess everyone came around to the conclusion that it would be better to try to take a collaborative approach and maybe try to reduce some of the finger pointing.
I interviewed Freedom Convoy lawyer Keith Wilson to respond to the claims made by Kanalakos. Take a look.
So far, I think we've heard some incredibly important evidence. What the evidence is today is about how the truckers were working with the city officials to de-escalate the situation and to reach an agreement to move the trucks out of the downtown core, but for Wellington. So the reason that's so important is that the implementation of that agreement between the truckers and the city occurred on the same weekend, the weekend of the 12th and 13th of February, which is the same weekend that the international borders opened at Windsor and Coutts. So the only thing happening in terms of a protest that was impacting Canada was the Ottawa protests at the time on the Sunday. And on the Monday, the truckers were successful in working with the police and the city officials to move 102 vehicles out of the downtown core, including 42 semi-trucks, 23 of which went up to Wellington. All the other vehicles left the downtown and went to remote locations outside the city. 2 city blocks were cleared. That was the deal being implemented. However, the federal government and the new police chief intervened on the subsequent days and blocked any further movements of trucks, which prevented the deal from being completed. So it really begs the question of why did the Prime Minister invoke the Emergencies Act at all?
The public order emergency inquiry isn't the only thing that's happening in Ottawa. Members of Parliament are back at work after a week off. I was able to speak with 7 Conservative MPs to get their thoughts on the Emergencies Act inquiry. Take a look at what Michael Barrett, the Shadow Minister for Ethics and Government Accountability for the CPC, Eric Duncan and Ziad Abultaif stated. What do you hope the findings, the outcome of the Emergencies Act inquiry will be?
I think what a lot of people are concluding that it was absolutely unnecessary to invoke that. I think it further stoked an already divided situation. And we talk about the polarization in this country and people's frustration and confidence in the federal government. I think I've seen limited clips of it so far, but I don't think they're building the case here. There were other tools available that I think could have de-escalated a situation much better. A lot of things the Prime Minister could have done in the first place, but the fact we were here and the fact that he even thought that needed to be evoked was frustrating in itself.
What do you hope the outcome of the Emergencies Act inquiry will be? What do you hope the findings will be?
Well, we have to get transparency for Canadians. The government has been trying to obstruct the truth, obstruct this process, and so that's really the bottom line. We've heard from Ontario's police force that the use of the act was not necessary for them to be able to do their job, which is a criteria for it to have been invoked. So that tells the tale right there that what we've been saying all along, that the government did not properly invoke this act. And so we're hoping for transparency. It's unfortunate, but very consistent with what this government's done in the past, that it took the commissioner to have some cabinet competences waived instead of the government being transparent and providing that to the commission, which is, the basic thing that Canadians would expect when we have a situation where Canadians' bank accounts were frozen and so many, civil liberties and basic freedoms that we expect as Canadians were violated by the government.
It's too harsh of a measure that the action doesn't deserve the Emergency Act. The government could have done it in a different way, more peaceful way, instead of bringing the whole... And that tells you about only 48 hours they lost before they just remove it. So that tells you that they were on immediately after they introduced it.
Jim Watson, the mayor of Ottawa, is testifying today on October 18th, and this will definitely be interesting to watch. Stay tuned with everything that's going on. You can head on to truckercommission.com. Thank you for watching. This was William Diaz here with Rebel News. If you want to help us fund our trip here in Ottawa, you can always head on to truckercommission.com and chip in as much as you can to help us pay for food, travel, expenses, and our Airbnb we use as a studio here in Ottawa.